Am I the jerk for pointing out my in-laws' manipulation when my spouse wouldn't? My husband and I have been together for 5 years. His parents have never been fans of me, particularly his mother. As he has grown older, their relationship has become strained and distant due to their extreme difference in beliefs, and she blames me. We moved away 3 years ago and are now back to our hometown. My in-laws were great in helping us tour rentals in person since we were across the country. Soon after solidifying a condo, his mother began to message him several times about designing our yard, wanting to fix it up before we moved, etc. We were very understanding of her excitement and gentle with our response. We wanted to wait until we moved since we had not actually seen the place yet to begin with, and there was an hoa with which we were not familiar, and we did not want to accidentally cause a problem off the bat. This is when she told us that she had already gone to the hoa anyway, about what she wanted to do without telling us. After our third decline of the offer, she was noticeably annoyed but dropped it at that. Fast forward to us moving in. We reached out after a couple of days, asking if we could have them over after settling in and get their opinion on some smaller touch-ups to the house. Her response was out of left field. She responded by saying that she had planned to plant us a garden, buy us a washer and dryer, and stock the kitchen. Since we had asked her to wait on the garden, she no longer wanted to help in any degree. This was the first time that we had heard about any plans beyond her wanting to fix up the garden. Since then, she has brought this up manipulatively each time we see each other and still finds ways to add it into messages with my husband. For example, at family dinners. I am a much more confrontational person than my husband and have kept my mouth shut to avoid adding any turmoil to their relationship until today. Mother-in-law messaged my husband today about having a bunch of plants that she does not have space for and wants us to take because she had already purchased them for our garden before asking our permission to pursue the project. She explicitly added blame on our part for this. This is now approaching 2 months from the original request that we asked her to wait. I am pretty fed up. I ended up responding to her about this being constant manipulative commentary and baseless blame. She is predictably very defensive and upset as a result. My husband is not upset with me for speaking out, but is getting the heated responses from her as a result. Am I the asshole for calling out this behavior? It's pretty bizarre that she's so incredibly invested in renovating your house. If your mother-in-law gets into that garden, she is going to know she can buy her way in and will be there all the time doing one thing or another. What he should do is put his foot down with his mom. Make sure she never has a key to your house. Am I the jerk for not forcing my fiancé to wear my father's late wife's wedding dress? My father lost his first wife, Nia, more than 30 years ago. My mother is the second in his heart because he has always said that the love of his life is Nia, and he has always made it clear. My dad still wears his wedding ring with Mia on one hand. My mom bakes a cake for her birthday. My mom leaves my dad alone when it's his anniversary with Mia, and he's feeling down. There are many photos of Mia in the house. There are even photos of her in their room because my father never wanted to change them. As crazy as it may seem, this kind of thing is very normal within couples of this type, and they see that as normal and sweet even if it is not. I've been raised that way, kind of having 2 mothers even if it wasn't like that. It was not a healthy childhood, but luckily, I have gone to therapy to work on all the issues that this caused. My mother always says that he gives her the space she deserves and feels equally loved like he loves his first wife. My siblings and I don't see it that way because our mother deserves better. But if she is happy, we will not ruin her happiness, so we never talk about it. Now, coming to the problem, I'm going to marry my fiancée. Her mother never had a wedding ceremony, so she doesn't have a wedding dress to inherit. My girlfriend excitedly told me that she thinks it would be cute to ask my mother if she can use her dress. My mom has mentioned that in the past, and I don't have any sisters, so I thought it was a nice idea. Anyway, I talked to my mom about lending her dress to my fiancé, and she got really excited and said yes. My mother had spoken several times about wanting to have a daughter to wear her dress, and she was very excited when my fiancé asked her to wear it. She even tried it on. That conversation was closed. Now, almost a month after we talked about it, my mom asked my fiancé if it would be nice to wear Mia's wedding dress. My fiancé told her no. She feels a connection with my mother and not with Mia. She doesn't even know Mia. After that, my mother has been asking me to try to convince my fiancé to wear Mia's dress. My father wanted me to put up the typical decoration to commemorate the deceased, but I told him I won't do that, so my mother now wants my fiancé to wear Mia's dress to commemorate her, and for her to be present too, because she was someone really special. Again, I never met her. I don't know who she was. My fiancé told me that Mia is a total stranger to her. I told my mother that I don't intend to do that. It even seems gloomy and weird to me, but I have been raised around Mia's memory that sometimes I don't even understand if I am exaggerating or not. Am I the bad person here? Being raised in this kind of way sometimes makes me feel confused about what is normal and not in a family. It would be normal to ask my fiancé to wear Mia's dress in my family dynamic, but I don't know what someone who was raised normally would do, and if I am a bad person for not wanting to have done it. You are not the one to blame. OP's father insisting on including Mia in the wedding is disrespectful to both OP's mother and fiancé. It's important to stand up for the living relationships and not let the memory of someone who is essentially a stranger dominate such a significant event. OP should communicate clearly with their mother and take a firm stance with their father to establish healthy boundaries. Am I the jerk for not wanting our brother-in-law to stay over? I, a 35-year-old female, have been married to my husband, a 36-year-old male, for almost 2 years. We have been together for 4 years. I gave birth to our first child 5 weeks ago. Before giving birth, we had spoken about not allowing visitors for the first few weeks for several reasons. When our newborn was barely 3 weeks old, my husband, let's call him James, told me that his brother-in-law, Mike, was coming to stay over that night as he had a job in the city we lived in. I was annoyed at this because we had both agreed that we would not allow visitors, not even my parents who finally became grandparents. In the end, I agreed he could stay on the basis that he would shower as soon as he entered our home, but I was still against his staying at all. Mike came over and showered as requested. He then told me he was staying for the following 2 days. He would have stayed for 3 days, but I finally visited my parents with the newborn on the 3rd day. Mike left on the 3rd day, and I thought that was the end of it, given he usually has jobs closer to where he lives. The following week, the same thing happened again, this time for 3 nights. After he left this time, I asked James to not allow visitors at such short notice again. It puts me on edge having a newborn and worrying about having to move to another room to feed them, where normally I would just unbutton my top and feed there and then. I am also on edge as the baby is crying or screaming due to colic and nothing I am doing is soothing them. James agreed he would not allow Mike to come again and would make up an excuse the next time he was asked. Well, it happened again today. James started getting calls at 5:00 p.m., which I asked him not to answer. Then another call came at 9:00 p.m. and yet another at 11:30 p.m. James was concerned Mike had nowhere to stay, and if it was 11:30 p.m., it must have been because no hotels in the area had a vacant room. Before I could even check hotels in the area, James answered the phone and told Mike he could come over. I then showed James several hotels, all reasonably priced with rooms available where Mike could have stayed. I eventually agreed to 1 night and 1 night only as this was getting a bit too much now. This ensued in an argument with me telling James he does not respect my boundaries. James said that next time any of my family want to visit, he will categorically not allow them to visit at all. James then said I put him in a difficult position and that I was being unreasonable. Now Mike is staying tonight, and I have no idea how long he will stay or when he will leave. I am not speaking to James. Sorry for the long post, but I have a screaming child yet again due to colic. They have been crying for the last 3 to 4 hours now, so while I try and soothe them, I need to know, am I the antagonist here? Some mom advice: keeping a journal to track what you eat and when colic occurs might reveal a pattern. Eliminating certain foods could help, like how one mom found that cutting out potatoes stopped the colic. Also, if your husband wants Mike to stay, he should handle all the hosting duties including meal prep and cleanup. It's only fair he resolves any inconvenience, especially with a baby involved. Am I the jerk for not letting my roommate keep her dog in our apartment? For context, I just moved into this apartment a week ago and have 3 random roommates. We all go to the same university and live in a college town. I was going to keep living with my friends and past roommates, but this new apartment is closer to my classes in Job, so it just makes more sense. When I signed my lease, I made sure to click no pets and even wrote in please no pets. Over the summer, I got multiple emails and calls from the leasing office asking if I would be okay with a roommate with a pet, if I was sure about no pets, etc. I replied to all inquiries that I signed a no pet lease and asked them not to place me with someone who has a pet. Right before school started, I got a text from my future roommate asking which room I got and if we could switch so her dog could have better access to the balcony. I replied that I did not know which room I had yet, but to be 100% transparent, I signed specifically for a no-pet lease and felt uncomfortable switching. I told her to contact our leasing office as they would probably have a solution. To have a pet in our apartment, each roommate must sign off on it. She replied back saying not to worry. Her dog is trained, certified, and only going to be in her room. My mother told me not to reply to her message because it had nothing to do with what I said. The whole situation made me upset because she did not even ask if I was okay with living with a pet. She just assumed I would be fine and willing to switch rooms with her. I wanted to call the leasing office, but my mother said not to because I should not have to switch rooms. She should switch because she obviously must have signed a no-pet lease too if we got paired. It is not like I am a person who hates animals. I grew up on a farm and have dogs myself. I just think it is inhumane to bring an animal to college. They are a lot of work, and I do not want to be responsible for cleaning up after her dog or be up all night from barking. That is why I signed a no-pet lease. One of the roommates asked if anyone had any pets. She sent a picture of the dog in our group chat. It is a golden retriever puppy. They seemed to be fine with it as they all responded with cute. Anyways, she moved in late today. I have not seen her yet, but I heard the dog barking. My sister made a good point because she said there is no way a puppy could be certified. I honestly do not know what to do because I seem to be the only one with a problem. I really do not want to cause any conflict literally the first week here. The whole situation is making me anxious and I cannot sleep. If I do not sign the pet agreement, does that make me a bad person? Should I just give in? You are not the problem, but this isn't a roommate issue. It's a leasing office placement issue. The office has no idea why you requested a pet-free lease. You could be severely allergic or just terrified of dogs. They need to make this right for the sake of all roommates. Report it to the management immediately and let them handle it. Am I the jerk for disagreeing with my family about appropriate ways to handle the upcoming death of my grandfather? I, a 27-year-old female, got a call that my grandfather does not have much time left. He has been battling dementia for almost 10 years and has been on hospice for several years. Hospice thought he would not make it through the weekend. He is immobile, cannot open his eyes, cannot eat, does not even have the strength to close his mouth, and is muttering incoherent words. He definitely will not make it through the next few weeks. The elder generation of my family is desensitized to this. They have received calls many times that this could be it, and it is almost like they have been waiting for him to die for the last several years. There are several things that my family, mostly my parents, have chosen to do that I disagree with and have spoken out about. I have been chastised for being in the wrong. My parents refuse to tell my older siblings, aged 35 to 40, that this is happening. Their only excuse is that they live in another state. I was explicitly demanded not to tell them. I thought this was wrong, so I called my siblings and told them anyway. My siblings would have found out based on things my mother is posting online about a sudden influx of family in town. My siblings are incredibly hurt that our parents had no plans to tell them and were so explicitly obvious about what is happening online. Over the weekend, I went to visit my grandfather in hospice to say my goodbyes. In the room, my mother and aunt were discussing post-mortem arrangements and how my aunt would be the one to identify his corpse before cremation. Hearing is the last sense to go, and I knew he could still hear us based on his reactions to other conversations. I looked at my mother and said, "These conversations can wait until he is not in the room." She said something to the effect of, "Well, this conversation needed to happen." I responded, "But it does not need to happen right now with him in the room while he is still alive." I distinctly believe death should not be a taboo topic. Discussing someone's death with them is essential. But talking about such dark post-mortem arrangements with a dying man in the room is so insensitive to him, and the purpose of everyone flocking to say goodbyes and hopefully provide comfort. As soon as it was just me and my dad in the room, he scolded me for telling my mother what she can and cannot do and said, "If you do not like it, you can leave." It is just as easy for the people having these conversations to leave the room as it is for me to leave the room. Later, when I talked to my husband about it, he said he was surprised when I said that and expressed his agreement with my family. While other family members and friends agree with me, now I am wondering, am I the antagonist? You are not in the wrong. Maybe it's worth pointing out that their current behavior is teaching you and your siblings how to treat them when they're older. Imagine how they would feel if you were discussing their post-mortem arrangements while they could hear but not respond. This is a hard time for them, but it's important to set some boundaries because their behavior isn't acceptable. Am I the jerk for getting my step-siblings taken away after my mom and stepdad kicked me out? I am a 16-year-old female in a difficult situation and unsure if I made the right decision. I need some input from people online because I do not trust any of the adults around me anymore. My parents split up a couple of years ago because my mother cheated. I have not seen my father since he left because he moved out of state, but he calls or texts sometimes. I lived with my mother even though I did not want to because she moved her boyfriend in, and I dislike both of them. He has 2 sons, age 7 and 5, who he has most of the time. They are the worst behaved children I have ever met. I was always in trouble because I had to babysit them. They would crash around and break things and I was not allowed to punish them, but it was my fault anyway since I was watching them. They broke the television by throwing a baseball in the house. My stepfather lost his mind and demanded that I pay him back for it. I told him I was tired of being blamed for his awful children, and he could shove it. It turned into a big fight, and they kicked me out, telling me not to come back until my attitude improved. They took my phone, so I tried to call my father from a friend's phone, but he never answered, and I could not remember my grandmother's number. My friend told her parents even though I asked her not to, and they called the police, which turned into a whole incident. My mother told them that I ran away because I was mad I had to babysit, but they did not believe her. My grandmother finally came and picked me up. She says I am staying with her until my father can come to take me back with him. My mother called my grandmother last week, yelling because her boyfriend's children were taken away to live with mother because of the whole incident. She says it is my fault. My grandmother says it is not my problem, but I know the children hate going to their mothers because they throw a fit every weekend they have to go. I know this situation is a big hassle for my grandmother, even though she does not say anything, and it is not good for her health. Now my father has to come back from overseas to deal with it too. Maybe I should have just apologized even though it was not my fault and waited it out. In my opinion, you have done nothing wrong here, and this is not your fault. Your mom and dad need to take care of their children. They can't leave it to you. It sounds like your dad simply ducked out, and your mom started exploiting you so that her new boyfriend wouldn't have to take care of his kids. Hopefully, they'll work something out, and you can spend the last couple of years of your childhood just being a child for a change. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.